My first story about the Gardner'S was Rabbit Trouble, which was also an attempt at a children's story. My best critic said that the art was good, but the story was too sophisticated to be a real children's story. Humph, I thought. So, I will write another story. Since every story has another story behind it, I will write a children's story for grown-ups. How Hannah and Joshua got together in the first place, a prequel. This is it. I call it New Hope. And I hope it's not too unsophisticated for grown-ups.
Oh, I bid farewell to the port and the land, and I paddled away from brave England's white sands to search for my long ago forgotten friends, to search for the place I hear all sailors end, as the souls of the dead fill.
Joshua came from a sailing family. He began his seaman's apprenticeship at 12 and earned his seaman rating when he turned 16. His first wreck was in 1878. He lost his ship, the clipper North Star, in a North Sea gale, but he was spared. Joshua swore off sailing after that harrowing disaster. An uncle in Liverpool offered him a job as a stevedore on the docks. He thrived at his work and by his 20th birthday, managed a crew of his own. His wages were good, but Joshua wanted more. To become a gentleman, a man of property, because he was in love with Anna Parker, a merchant's daughter and accustomed to a life that Joshua could not provide her. Joshua's late mother was from France and Joshua had a blood relation there, an uncle he had never met. When the old fellow passed away, Joshua's dreams materialized and his prayers were answered. There was a considerable inheritance, property and modest wealth in the seaside village of Neuville-les-Spoir, in southern France. Neuville-les-Spoir is French for New Hope. It was no surprise to Joshua that Anna's father was much friendlier and his daughter was now truly eager to wed. Joshua and Anna loved making their plans for a new life near Marseille. They could not wait to exchange the gloominess of Liverpool for a bucolic life in the sunshine of a Mediterranean village. Yet, Anna had plans of her own, plans she was afraid to share with her fiancé for fear it would endanger their dream. Hannah was Anna's poor younger cousin. At 18, 3 years younger. Her prospects for a good life in England were worse than poor. But Anna loved the cousin she had grown up with and could not face abandoning her. Anna and Joshua's plans for New Hope were an obvious solution for Hannah's hopes too. Anna waited until after the wedding to tell Joshua that someone else was coming with them to France. Was it wrong for Anna to spring Hannah on Joshua? One would have to understand the depth of his love for his new wife to answer this question aright. Late in April, the trio booked passage on the mail packet ship Archer for La Rochelle, France. There they would transfer to the schooner Harpoon and continue the last leg of their 2-week journey. They would sail the Bay of Biscay around the Iberian Peninsula to Porto, Portugal, then down to Gibraltar where they would enter the Mediterranean. This was their plan, but as Joshua knew so well, too often the sea dashed the best of plans. The Bay of Biscay would see to this and fully test their plans and their very life.
Johnny, leave I guess it's time for us to go, and it's time for us to leave her. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, the voyage is done and the winds don't blow, and it's time for us to leave her. Oh, I thought I heard the old man say, leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, tomorrow you will get your pay, and it's time for us to leave her.
The sun has hardly warmed the wall you went in. splashes on the sand. You hoped it would be warm, but you say pulling out your hand.
Swimmers. It was only yesterday that Joshua, Anna, and Hannah were up on deck enjoying wine and kippers with other first-classers and discussing how the Harpoon could make a comeback in their competition with the Sandollar, the Harpoon's sister schooner. They were racing to Porto, Portugal. There was several £100 at stake in the kitty. Anna had chucked in 10, but the Sandollar was already hours ahead. Over the horizon, the sun was going down by 4 bells in the afternoon, the first dog watch, but the wind and sea were rising. The captain had the top sails reefed by the last dog watch. The boatswain's mate told the passengers that they were in for a fair blow. That was just the night before. It was a full gale on by 5 bells that morning, and by 8 bells, the schooner Harpoon had broken her back and she began to sink. Joshua and Hannah stepped calmly into the sea by 10 that morning. Anna did not go so eagerly. Both the women were good swimmers, but that was in rivers, lakes, and ponds. The frigid, churning sea was something very different. Joshua knew this and knew about the sea and surviving in it. He tried to prepare the women. "Take off your dresses," he hollered at them above the roaring and before taking the plunge. "Shoes and petticoats too. They will send you straight down to Davy Jones. Just your chemise and knickers." Anna seemed insulted and upset by her husband's demands. "Look, over there. That shore isn't far." "No, I can dog paddle that." How swiftly the Harpoon was settling in her watery grave. They weren't jumping down, no, the water was coning up to them. Hannah was in and swimming. Anna was arguing with Joshua, still on deck with the sea churning around her feet. Joshua finally pulled his wife over the gunwale, which by then was already submerged. Joshua and Hannah fought to keep Anna up, but in the end, her petticoats were the anchor that took her. Joshua and Hannah fought the foaming, towering waves to the safety of the shore.
I couldn't make this last. Take more of this moment, trade in some of my past. You swim. You swim. You in it all and letting it all in.
Ripples, they go running on the incoming tide. Whisper of laughter, side to side. No one goes looking, whoever they may be.
Survivors.
No one goes seeking the folk of the sea.
They came out of the sea and collapsed on the churning sand where the waves died at their feet. Both were stunned, horrified, over Anna's unimaginable tragedy, and over their own Herculean struggle with the sea to save themselves. Soaking, they were shivering uncontrollably, for the Bay of Biscay was no more than 10 degrees Celsius, this early in May. They were scarcely aware of each other's presence in the numbness of their immediate trauma. For a few moments, they were alone in the depths of their grief. Then Hannah's grief exploded as she collapsed onto Joshua in a great tidal wave of tears. This startled Joshua, and suddenly he was aware of this girl's pain. He was not alone in this. Poor Hannah was an equal partner in this wreck, physically and emotionally. Joshua slowly and tenderly put his arms around her and rocked her gently, swaying her in his arms as he would an injured child. The icy numbness of shock was melting away. There, was all he could say while thinking how useless it was to say it. As Joshua looked over her shoulders, he surveyed the rocky coastline of this desolate place. He quickly felt his side, remembering the belt he had fashioned, the belt with all his wadded banknotes. This he had done when he first realized the harpoon was going to wreck. The belt was still about his waist. Then he noticed something. Distant figures through the haze, wandering the beach. "We are all right," Joshua called out. "There are others from the ship who've made it. Look," he exclaimed. Down the beach, he lifted her head from his chest. Hannah turned to look. She held on to Joshua even tighter. "Do you think Anna?" She paused but didn't finish. "Hannah." Joshua stopped her impossible hope. "You know what happened. We lost her. We lost her." He swiftly shook this off and got up. "Here, let's go to a drier spot and gather ourselves together." They moved away from the surf and up on the shore where the breeze was warmer and they could survey more of the beach. By mid-afternoon, a few bedraggled passengers and crew wandered up the beach and gathered. They asked about Anna, and Joshua had to tell the sad tale more times than he wanted. But he and Hannah asked after other people they had met but were absent. Then, listened to the tearful heartbreak of others, too. The sad assembly finding support together, so much needed strength in their predicament. They wondered about rescue, and whether or not some ought to seek help inland. Joshua reminded them that this was Basque Country, the most rugged and unoccupied land on this side of the Atlantic. He gave anyone wandering inland little hope of success. "Wait on the Sand Dollar," he said. "She was a new and better built vessel than ours," he said with authority. "She certainly weathered this blow and is on the way back for us." And so it was. The Sand Dollar spotted them by the time the sun was sinking in the western horizon. She was greeted with shouts and waving ragged shirts. Their rescuers landed a lifeboat with stores for the night. It was too dangerous to take them off in the dark. They built a grand bonfire and dined on the fare sent by their rescuers. Chicken, bread, a wheel of cheese, and wine. Welcome sleep came easily to the survivors like Hannah and Joshua. Fatigue, a full belly, a warm night, and their certain deliverance, all overcame their sorrows and injuries that night. All slept deeply. The ragged group was finally aboard the Sand Dollar by sunrise. The passengers on board, and even the crew, called Sandies, even they, donated clothing to the castaways. The captain was delivering them to Bordeaux, France, since it was the nearest port with an English embassy and magistrate to help stranded Englishmen. Joshua was glad to hear this. He unconsciously checked the belt around his waist. He could start putting his life back together in Bordeaux with the help of the English ambassador. As for Hannah, Joshua could not send her back to the penury she was escaping. But then what was to be done? That was a big question now. A friendly following wind carried the Sand Dollar swiftly toward Bordeaux, France. The castaways had little time to consider the life-changing events that had overtaken them in the last couple of days. The sea robbed them of everything they had. Even the entire families of two poor fellows. Yes, every survivor was grateful their lives were spared. But now, on this brief voyage to the consulate in Bordeaux, they were starting to count their losses and assess the life-changing consequences of their shipwreck. Men and women had separate sleeping arrangements aboard the Sand Dollar. Men, forward, and women, aft. What quarters you found were cramped, but Joshua kept to his spot, forward in the hold. Everybody wanted the elbow room and freedom found topside. People were scrambling up even before dawn. Not Joshua. The way Hannah was behaving, he was sure that he would never have a chance to be alone again like this. It was not the embarrassment of how she constantly clung to him. No, that was understandable and natural. After the wreck. No, it was something else, an attraction he sensed between them. It bothered him. The girl was not the innocent child he thought she was, although she dangled on him like what? Like a father? Like a husband? He only saw Hannah at meals the first 2 days. He let her know it was his sorrow over losing Anna that was the reason he required solitude. It was close enough to the truth, not to be a real lie, yet it was not the truth. The truth is what this newly widowed man was seeking, all alone in the ship's hold. He just needed time to think. On the last full day at sea, Joshua found Hannah on deck and asked her very simply and plainly, what was in her heart? What did she want, and where did she want to go from this place in her life? The boatswain's mate interrupted them. Beg ye pardons, but I be lettin' all know we be nearin' the Gironda shortly. Hannah seemed to ignore Joshua's inquiry, and instead asked him questions about the Gironda and the estuary, and the Garonne River, and how far it was to Bordeaux. He nearly lost his patience with her. She was purposely ignoring his very critical and well-thought-out questions. The ways of women were a mystery to him. His mother died when he was a child, leaving him and 3 brothers and his father. The sea was his home from 12 to 22, and only women you paid were a part of that world. His courtship and brief 3 months of marriage failed to teach him any more about this mysterious feminine world. She briskly and brazenly asked him, "Why don't you tell me just how much money you have in that sash or belt you keep wrapped around your middle?" Put off by her bold inquiry, he answered defensively, "That is a rather personal subject I wouldn't casually talk about, especially on voyages. You needn't trouble yourself over it. There is enough to see us through this situation." She stared at him, then said, "But I take it that you really do know the answer to that personal subject." Then added, "You asked me about personal subjects, too, and neither shall I share the answers with you, not yet, Mr. Gardner. I hope you understand." Well, he thought his questions were simple and straightforward, but apparently they were not. Joshua did not understand that she needed to consider how she would answer him, and when she would answer, and the manner in which her answers might affect him, and so on. Now she was the one needing time to puzzle over things. This would not take days, perhaps just moments. The Sand Dollar was gliding into the broad estuary called the Gironda, where the Garonne River flows into the Atlantic. A steam tug that tows ships upriver recognized this new prospect and made her way towards her. The startling screech of her whistle drove Hannah into Joshua's arms. Suddenly, she breathlessly confessed, "My heart wants you, Joshua. I cannot hide it, and I want to go wherever you go." And in shame, touching her dear cousin Anna, she buried her head in his chest and cried over and over, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Heavy black coal smoke from the tug put upon the passengers of the Sand Dollar as the booming steam tug hauled them upstream toward Bordeaux. "It's too much to bear," Joshua was going on as they both stood at the gunwale. "What?" asked Hannah, above the labored chugging of the steam tug. "I said your dear cousin has left us with an emptiness too heavy to bear." But he realized as soon as he said it that the topic was too delicate for this noisy public place. Hannah just looked away without comment. Both the topic and the talking were too difficult. Hannah pointed ahead. "What is the name of that horrible boat?" "The petit cochon," he replied. "I think it means little piggy." This made her laugh as she waved away a stream of smoke. It took most of that day to reach Bordeaux. It was late in the afternoon when the castaways eagerly fled the Sand Dollar, finding they were amid the port's frantic business. No one on the docks paid any attention to the schooner's arrival. Ashore, the castaways vanished in the crowd, each on their own affair. Joshua managed to find a handsome cab. They flew through the streets of the impressive city and came to the great square where they arrived at the main entrance of the famous Le Grand Hotel. Hannah got out of the cab and screeched in dismay when she saw the grandeur of the world-renowned hotel. "I cannot go in this place. Just look at me. I look and smell like a rag picker." Joshua took her elbow, encouraging his self-conscious companion. "Oh, hokey pokey. Hold your beautiful head up high and walk in like a princess." Many curious eyes followed this humbly attired couple across the lobby's plush green carpet, the shoes on their stockingless feet flopping with every step. Their great need to bathe closely followed them to the marble front desk. The gestionnaire and concierge swiftly ushered the unsightly Joshua from the front desk and lobby back to the office. Of course, it was Joshua's masterful account of their misfortune at sea, and his request to deposit over £800 in British banknotes in their vault, that convinced the gestionnaire and concierge to graciously grant these soiled but posh guests 2 adjoining apartments. And they each spent the rest of that day lounging in their tubs. The next morning, the concierge was busy making arrangement for the Gardner'S, for Joshua had presented Hannah as his younger sister. The concierge followed Joshua's requests, including finding Hannah an English-speaking girl, a maid. Hannah was shocked. Colette was her name, and with a curtsy, she humbly offered to show Hannah Bordeaux's famous shopping on the Rue Saint Catherine. "No," Hannah thought. "How can I have a servant, a maid? I am a servant, a maid. This is very strange, this." Hannah was dumbfounded at the attention she was gleaning. It was a dream. Joshua sent Hannah and Colette away, well equipped for a day's shopping. After the barber's visit, he went shopping too. He would meet Sir Richard Lyons, 1st Earl of Lyons, the British consulate in Bordeaux, or one of his fellows today. It was not the Earl of Lyons he met, but Mr. Oxland. Joshua and Hannah would spend 10 days in Bordeaux resolving what needed resolved with the wreck of the Harpoon and Anna's drowning. Wires were sent and letters written. The question of Hannah's situation was the only matter left unresolved after a week and a half. Finally, on one of the many walks they took, Joshua said to Hannah, "You know, dear Hannah, we cannot continue here in Bordeaux, as lovely as it is. I must leave for New Hope very soon, and it is not right to continue the sham of you pretending to be my sister. People will smoke out the truth soon enough." He took her by the hand but looked down, saying, "Our hearts will never recover from Anna's loss, but even in this grief, my heart is reaching for you, dear lady. I am asking you to continue with me to New Hope as He raised his eyes to hers. "As my wife. Will you marry me, Hannah?" "With all my heart, yes, yes." Hannah wept. And this is how Joshua and Hannah became Mr. and Mrs. Gardner. They were married proper in the Church of England at the British consulate, and straightaway made plans for the southern coast of France and Nouvel Espoir, New Hope. This time, though, they would travel south on the French railway, because Napoleon III used his dictatorial powers to rid the government of all railroad responsibilities, which was a good thing. He consolidated everything into individual companies. France now had a new and proper railway system. In only days, Joshua and Hannah would arrive in New Hope and begin their new life together. The end.
No one ever saw the house through the pine trees on the belt, only elders staring out.
Once upon a time, in the small seaside village of Happy Hope, there was a beautiful and wonderful garden. Oh, I am already jumping ahead of myself. We need a gardener first, before we have a story about a garden. So, in this story let's have two gardeners. We will have a Mr. Gardner, of course, and then we can also have Mrs. Gardner, too, for she gardens as well. They are Mr. and Mrs. Gardner. That's right. This is their real name. The Gardner's. His name is Joshua Gardner and her name is Hannah Gardner. There. Now we can begin a story about a beautiful garden. The Gardners' life together in their great garden was happy, that is, until the bunny rabbits showed up. At first, there were only a few little bunnies hopping about, but very soon, there were very many rabbits. It seemed to Joshua, they did nothing but nibble and chew and gobble up every single vegetable and flower in his garden. He saw that Hannah didn't seem to notice a problem. Why, it even seemed to Joshua that she enjoyed their company. But Joshua just knew that these were pests that soon would put an end to their garden. Joshua was becoming quite troubled about this, but he didn't know what to do about it. The one thing that the Gardners always did with problems was they talked about them together. Then, maybe between the two of them they could find an answer. That is why Joshua decided to take this rabbit trouble to Hannah that afternoon and explain how angry he was getting. Together, they would find an answer. It was the middle of a very warm summer afternoon when Joshua approached his wife. After a little chit-chat, Joshua had the courage to bring up what he sensed would be a sensitive subject. "Darling," Joshua inquired of Hannah, "I'm afraid we may have a bit of trouble and I don't know quite how to handle it." "Oh dear!" exclaimed Hannah. "Does this have anything to do with how irritable you've seemed lately? Is that what we are talking about now?" Joshua nodded yes. Hannah quickly requested, "Then tell me, Josh, what in the world is upsetting you so? What can be the problem? Is it something I have done?" "Oh no, Hannah, my pet. It is not you. Frankly, it is the rabbits. They are utterly out of control. They are simply eating everything in sight, and I fear it calls for drastic, desperate measures." Joshua stood up for dramatic effect. "They are becoming just monstrous." He was thinking of getting his old shotgun out of the closet. But before he could finish explaining what he was planning to do, Hannah saw just what he was thinking, put a hand to her worried lips, crying out, "Oh dear me! Joshua!" She never called Joshua by his full name. "Joshua, we certainly don't want to harm our bunny friends, do we?" Joshua suddenly realized that his biggest problem was their very opposite feelings about the rabbits. On one hand, he saw them as monstrous eating machines gobbling up his well-manicured world. And on the other hand, Hannah saw only sweet and cuddly little bunny friends. "My darling wife," Joshua pleaded, "our friends, as you call them, will be the ruin of our garden, of our happiness. I must do something." "Oh, Josh," she tried to mollify him. "Then I don't know." She pouted but also wondered for a moment, then said, "Perhaps some kind of non-harmful thing like a scarecrow." "Yes, that's it. A scare rabbit. We can make a big bunny out of your old clothes stuffed with straw and then stick it up on a pole in the garden. Maybe that will keep them away," she said proudly. Joshua's eyes were wide in amazement. "A scare rabbit?" he repeated, then broke out in great laughter. Joshua was laughing so hard he could barely speak. "That's the funniest thing I've ever heard. I think a big scare rabbit would bring more of them to see something as funny as that." Joshua's laughter turned into a frown as soon as he looked at his wife.
Oops.
Hannah looked so very hurt and slighted by her husband's insensitive mirth. "Well then," she bleakly quipped, "if you find my ideas so funny, why ask for my advice at all, Mr. Joshua Gardner? Figure it out for yourself." And then added, "No matter what you do, mister, the first thing you better do is imagine yourself as a poor bunny and how you would like it, whatever you plan to do to them." With that, Hannah briskly gathered herself up and marched off to another part of their big garden. Joshua was nonplussed. He sighed a big sigh as the rabbits looked on. "Oh, just you be quiet," he warned them as he, too, got up and walked toward the shade of the old apple tree just outside their garden. He sat and folded his arms, then closed and rested his eyes. He tried to picture in his brain just what the world would look like if he were a rabbit. Hannah Gardner freshened up and cooled down by the old wishing pond in the middle of the garden. It had been there ever since before anyone could remember. Even before there was a garden. She swirled her fingertips in the cool, cool water and watched the ringlets of little waves circle, circle, circle. She loved Joshua and she loved the bunnies, too. She knew for sure that they were two different kinds of love, but she thought, "I do love both and they ought not quarrel, it is not proper." "I hope Josh listened to what I said," Hannah thought to herself as she stared into the pool. "I wish he could really see the world like the bunnies see it." Her eyes suddenly brightened. "Oh, that's it. I wish the bunnies could talk with Josh and then they could come to some arrangement together. An agreement, a plan." Joshua awoke from his summer's afternoon nap and walked back into his beautiful garden. "Well," he thought as he walked and sighed, "I did not find out how to fix the rabbit trouble yet." As Joshua came to the garden, he spied somebody standing there, working. It was not Hannah. As he neared the fellow, he shook his head in astonishment. How could he believe his own eyes? It was a big rabbit fellow. "Hello," Joshua loudly called, startling Mr. Rabbit, who turned and said, "How do you do? Please grab another rake there and clean up that pile of clippings on the path." "That's a good man." Joshua was so shocked that he automatically grabbed a rake before he even realized it. He blinked and shook his head, thinking, "Who's this stranger, ordering me around as if this was his garden?" "Excuse me," Joshua said heatedly. "Just whose garden do you think this is?" From behind came another voice, tough and stern. "This belongs to the Rabbit Guild of this town, and you shouldn't be bothering our work." Joshua turned to see, but could only stare at the rabbit's big shotgun.
But you do not know. You think you're falling for me.
"Whoa!" Joshua said in surprise. "There is no need for a gun in a garden, in my garden. I insist that you set that shotgun down." Then Joshua added, "And just who in blue blazes are you?" Mr. Rabbit announced, "I happen to be Mr. Henry Hopper, appointed by the Warren as sheriff of this here garden, so don't try anything funny." But the sheriff set down his shotgun anyway. Joshua scratched his noggin. This was the funniest thing he ever saw. Was he about to be arrested by a rabbit in his very own garden? Joshua couldn't help it. He began to laugh out loud at Sheriff Hopper. Okay, Sheriff," Joshua laughed. "Do you know I am?" "Why, yes. You are the big clod who thinks he is God or something, always tromping and stomping about with your giant boot stompers. Boom, 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 you go, glowering down and roaring at the bunny clan, scaring our little bunnies. That's who you are." Suddenly, the birds stopped chirping, the bees stopped buzzing, and even the crickets paused their cricket songs. Had the whole wide world been listening to Henry Hopper's harsh words of criticism? Joshua Gardner's smile was long gone. Like the rest of the world, his heart had listened too. This is what is meant by taking someone's words to heart. Had Joshua been oppressing the rabbits and scaring the bunny children? But, right away, Joshua wanted to deny all these charges. No. I am not a bad man. Nothing is wrong with me. The sheriff is the wrong one to say such things. He must be jealous of me or something. But then Joshua saw many rabbits beginning to huddle behind Sheriff Hopper and looking in a hard way back at him. Joshua gave a big sigh and plopped down on a seat. All right then, good, he pleaded. I think both of us must admit that we may not see each other in the best light. I am not an ogre and you are not monsters. Henry Hopper and a growing crowd of other rabbits sat around Joshua. Henry asked the important first question. Can we also admit that both you and we have some claim to the garden? When Joshua agreed, all the rabbits and bunnies applauded him. Their little hands sounded like the pitter-patter of rain on the window. All through the late afternoon they negotiated one point after another, such as, rabbits could dine in one part of the vegetable garden on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and dine in a different part of the vegetable garden on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. All flowers and all sprouts under 15 centimeters were strictly off limits to all nibbling. When Joshua told Hannah about the amazing meeting with the rabbits, she was overcome with joy. She even wrote this garden charter for all to sign and mark, which they did. Bunny paw prints covered the charter all over.
He was my bunny, so soft and
Josh and Hannah made up. They always do, you know. And Joshua decided to make Hannah's scare rabbit. You know what? Rabbits came from all over Happy Hope just to see it. Just like Joshua said. And Hannah laughed and laughed. The end.